Hello everybody and welcome back to the weekly English shooting live stream. Who would have thought 2 videos in 1 week and 2 live stream back to back in a week? Like, what's going on? I must be feeling ill. Anyway, thanks everyone for joining. I hope you've all had a fantastic week. Let's get into the live stream. Before we do, actually, hit that like button. Make sure you are subscribed. The main story for this evening, all around Westlake Engineering, actually got picked up. Well, I picked it up due to a video that I'm doing at the moment, or I've just edited and completed and uploaded, which will be out this Sunday. What's this? Another video? This is almost like this is a YouTube channel. So I was doing a lot of research around Westlake Engineering and the history of the LBP and the muzzle loading revolvers that he makes, and this popped up and I thought, like, it on its own is a little bit sus, but given the propensity for the dislike that the Home Office and firearms licensing has had for him in the past, your suspicion meter just goes absolutely through the roof. But this isn't actually a very particularly new story. I know a couple of you have said, I pointed this out a while ago. I couldn't remember if we'd have even touched upon this on the stream, but obviously doing a bit of research and it popping up, I thought this is actually a fairly significant story and is having quite a significant effect on a completely law-abiding business. So the thing that I absolutely love about Alan Westlake and Westlake Engineering is that they are completely forthcoming. All of this information is on his website, as is the previous run-ins that he's had with the Home Office, with firearms licensing, the police in general, and he just puts it all out there for people to see and and let them know what is going on. So if you go onto his website and have a look at his products page, obviously his main product these days is the 357 muzzle loading revolver. I will be going into the nitty-gritty of exactly what this is for anybody that doesn't know, but if you scroll down you can see various updates in terms of the availability of this gun. It says last updated in July, but I believe the actual last update given was in August 5th of the 8th. So basically last year, or over a year ago, last year, November 20, I'm assuming that's 2021, unless, Alan Westlake, as well as being a genius when it comes to firearms and firearms law, he's also a time traveller. I genuinely wouldn't be surprised, but I'm going to take that as 2021. I had a visit from a member of the NCA, the National Crime Agency. The NCA is compared to the UK FBI. They deal with they used to be called SOCA, the Serious Organised Crime Agency. They deal with the really serious people, usually large quantities of drugs, gun smugglers, human traffickers, stuff like that. So National Crime Agency wanted to check what happened to some Alpha ML revolver frames and barrel assemblies. Well, of course, he makes them. So the whole premise of this gun is that he actually buys in the frames. I believe the cylinder is I get conflicting things. He has at some point made his own cylinders, or the cylinders are now made by Alpha. I've seen both sort of stated, but anyway, he buys these guns in as muzzle loaders and assembles them here within the UK, or they're made as muzzle loaders and sent over. Regardless, he gave me the serial numbers and I furnished him with the required information for my record. He left apparently happy with what he had said. On the 11th of March, the next shipment of the ML frame/barrel assemblies was seized by an officer of the Border Force at Manchester Airport. It even gives the seizure references. It's really a case of, look, I have absolutely nothing to hide. Like, come at me. Like, I have nothing to hide. I'm going to put everything out there for the world to see. Since then, Border Force have refused to say when they will be released. They were being imported at my request by Merseyside Armoury, who are the alpha agents in the UK. Officer Lewis believes they are Section 5 prohibited firearms, in spite of them never having been a complete firearm. We'll talk about the minutiae of all of that in a second. They say that they are waiting for a firearms expert to tell them the category of firearms. I cannot understand what the delay is unless they are trawling through all the Home Office experts to find one that agrees with Officer Lewis, and gives them the result the Home Office wants. As a result of this seizure, my business has no income, and I was waiting for the seized parts to complete orders for a list of waiting customers. This has meant I cannot fund the development, and this is like news in itself, the development of the Brit Mark 22 long pistol, or complete the final parts for the Brit Arms 357 ML revolver. The last update in August, I've managed to contact John Glenn's office in Salisbury. He has contacted Border Force, who says they are waiting for the NCA to complete their investigation. The NCA, do they really think I'm supplying the underworld with firearms? Someone has dug themselves into a hole and is still digging. The gun trade organisation have not been able to get any answers from Border Force either, so all in all it looks like the small man being shafted by the government. It really does tell it how it is. I cannot decide if they are delaying things in the hope that I will go bankrupt, which is this is a genuine concern. Like, you know, this is his main revenue stream, or if the plan is incompetent, or if it's plain incompetence. Yeah, you could ask if it's a mixture of both. If you would like an alpha MLR, please email me and ask to be put on the waiting list, and I will contact you when I am able to resume production. If you're in a position to put pressure on the government, and this goes for anybody watching or listening, if you think there is something that you can do to help, maybe you have contacts, you have influence, or you think there's a way, you know, you're an expert in getting Border Force to actually pull their finger out and do something, then please, you can go on to westlakeengineering.com. You can get in contact with Alan Westlake. Please, if anybody can help him, please do so, because we owe this guy a lot. You know, I know there's a lot of practical shooters that watch this channel, and there's a disproportionate amount of people that watch this channel in this stream that have long-barreled pistols as well, and you owe everything to this guy. So, and I'll go into that in a little bit in a sec. To help resolve this, then I would be most grateful, as will the long list of people waiting for their Alpha ML revolvers. Below, I have reproduced the letter I sent to Border Force for them to forward to their firearms expert. So in terms of the law of this, there's so many different aspects to sort of cover. So, like, first of all, what the hell is an Alpha 357 muzzle loading revolver? Well, there's a picture here. What's better than a picture? I actually have a video. So this is a bit of a sneak peek of what is coming out on Sunday, having a look not just at the pistol itself, but a little bit of history of Alan Westlake. So recently went up to Phoenix shooting range up in Barnsley. Fantastic range, by the way. Full tour video coming out very, very soon on this range. It's taken me far too long to get any media out about this range, because it's, again, one of the sort of ranges and companies that we should be supporting. But this is the Alpha 357 revolver. As you can see, like, I know you can detach the cylinder from most revolvers, but this is easily detachable because it's classed as a muzzle loader, depending on your definition of a muzzle. So it goes through all the processes of how you load one up and how you fire one, but this is basically to allow us to still have a normal revolver. Of course, short firearms, anything with a barrel under 12 inches or a total length under 24 inches were made Section 5, which are, you can have them for sporting, but it's incredibly complicated. It's just easy to say that they are prohibited from general ownership. But muzzle loading pistols weren't within that. So within the 1997 ban, the short firearms were banned apart from muzzle loading. And with the definition of muzzle loading, Alan Westlake has been able to get new revolvers. And bearing in mind the technicalities of this is that he gets in firearm parts, or the gun is made as a muzzle loader to begin with. So he's not buying in a 357 Magnum, cartridge loading revolver. He is buying in the frames and the component parts, and the first time that it becomes a usable, functional gun is as a muzzle loader. Because it is defined as a muzzle loader, it can then be classed as a Section 1 firearm that allows people to have them under their firearm certificate, so you're able to collect them, you're able to go and take part in target sports with them. And they do fit, because it's built off of a modern revolver frame, the Alpha frame. It feels just like any other revolver, and it's actually, in terms of the hobby and enjoyment of shooting, they're fascinating because there's so much more to it. You don't just turn up to the firing point, put a few cases or rounds in there and start going away. You have to prep the whole gun, and there's a whole process to it, which just, to me, adds to the experience. And that's why I've applied for one on my under my firearm certificate application. I've wanted one of these guns for an incredibly long time, not just because of how interesting I find the gun and the whole experience of loading one and shooting one, but the whole history behind it. So an incredibly fascinating gun, but of course, because the Home Office is sort of like, you bastard, like, this is not what we intended a muzzle loader to ever be. And it's like, yeah, but that's not how you wrote it. You wrote the guidance. So I'm interpreting the law, and I'm interpreting it a lot better than you are. They've never liked what Alan Westlake has got up to. So if we go back to his website and have a look at the history, it is absolutely astounding. Now, I've been on his website before, but actually doing the research for that video, it's absolutely phenomenal. Like, what this guy has done for us and what he's been through. So basically, I think it was 1986, Alan Westlake purchased Britarms, which was a 2.2 target pistol. He's an accomplished pistol shooter himself, and then of course ran the company, was fairly successful, and then they banned them in 1997 or 1998 because it was a 2.2, and then he went straight on the muzzle loading scene. So he started making various like in-house target pistols that were muzzle loaders, and it developed, and then he got onto the revolver, and then this. I've always sort of said the Browning butt mark was like the first LBP. No, it was the Britarms 2.2. This was the first long barrel pistol ever to be in existence. It was Alan Westlake of Westlake Engineering that came up with the idea, that interpreted the law and said, well, hang on a minute, it has to be 24 inches long, and it has to have a 12-inch barrel. I can do that. So using the original Britarms as a foundation, he fabricated the first long barrel pistol. Then he wanted a cheaper, more available option, which was the Browning butt mark. So you can see he would take a butt mark rifle and then trim it down, cut it down to a pistol variant. Those aren't actually, due to the non-availability of the Browning butt mark rifle, the LBPs aren't made anymore, and then he got into the muzzle loading revolvers, but with modern frames. So there's been a few variants. He's used Taurus, he's used arms core revolvers as bases, and so yeah, I think that's the arms core variant, and then today the modern one is the Alpha. So he uses the Alpha frame. You can get it in a 6, 4, 3 or 2-inch barrel, and he does a sporter version. And again, news to me based on what he's been saying here is that he wants to bring back the Brit mark and offer offer more options. It's a shame that he doesn't seem to be selling any long-barreled pistols at the moment that are his creation, bearing in mind that he created the long-barreled pistol. If you do have a Browning buttmark rifle, though, you can send it to him to be converted to a long-barrel pistol. So, he will still do that for you if you can get the original gun, but he can't get hold of them. And this is where I think all of his problems an issue, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is what has caused the Home Office, the Border Force, NCA to have a massive hard-on for him. So, he came out with the long barrel pistol. We came out with a Brit Arms long pistol, and instantly the Home Office was like, no, we think that's Section 5. We think that's effectively prohibited. That can't be Section 1. And he was like, well, look at the definition of within the firearms guidance, within the firearms law. As long as it's 24 inches long and it's 12-inch barrel, then it conforms to Section 1. It is, by definition, a rifle. It's a long arm or a carbine. And he's put all of the correspondence. It's not too far, long ago, 2004. Okay, that's probably a good 9 years before I got into shooting. Like as much as I have today. But yeah, not in shooting history. That's not that long ago. But basically documents how they're basically saying it's Section 5, and there are some beautiful one-liners within all of this. I'm hoping to do a little bit more of a detailed video on it, but I'm going to try and keep it as succinct as possible. But of course, this is only an opinion. Ultimately, a court of law can make a definitive judgment of the status of any particular firearm. They hide behind this quite a lot, as some sort of threat, like, we're just advising you, but remember that if the judge deems otherwise, you're screwed. But it's fully documented, and I love stuff like this. If you can tell, this is Alan Westlake to the Home Office. Is it Home Office? Yeah. If you can tell me in any way this pistol does not comply with a firearms law, I will see if it can be modified to comply. I thought I had manufactured a pistol that did comply, and I will appreciate your advice on the matter. It's basically saying, like, look, you're not going to win this one, right? Not only do I understand the law better than you, not only can I interpret it better than you, but even if you find somewhere that I might have slipped up that it doesn't conform to firearms law, I'll just design away. I'll just design around it. I'll just, if you want to move the goalposts, I'll keep moving the ball. So, and it's little, he gives these little, like reports off of, his correspondence. So they have it. Perhaps if I had been a Bulgarian businessman, things may have been different. As far as the Home Office is concerned, I and the Wiltshire Police must fight it out in court. Please also note that Wiltshire ratepayers will foot the bill, not the Home Office budget. Oh, and me, of course. I absolutely love this guy. Absolute bona fide legend in my book. However, the Home Office today reiterated their position that they think it may be Section 5, and I think the moon may be made from cream cheese, but the facts indicate otherwise. The Home Office minister's wishes do not necessarily make it so. I am writing to all the police authorities to ask if they will issue variations for the pistol. I will let you know how I get on. In the meantime, if you want to buy a Brit Arms long pistol, the price is £950. It's, things like keep taking the pills, Alan. And it just goes on and on and on the back, and then he ends up, so there you go, folks. It seems that we can prevail inside. So, the long and the short of it is that he ended up winning. They ended up backing down and saying, yes, you're right, with a fair few caveats. But, you're right. The Brit Arms 2.2 is absolutely fine. Crack on. So it seems that we can prevail in spite of the blatant misuse of power by the Home Office to try and prevail prevent this pistol from coming into production, in spite of it complying with the law as written, not as wished as it was written by the Home Office. They really are a bunch of XXX, aren't they? I'd just love to know what word he was, or phrase he was actually thinking of before he blurted it out, or he X'd it out. So that's a bit of a history of his dealings with firearms licensing and the Home Office. So it's no surprise, I think it's perfectly clear to see that they really don't like what he's doing. They don't like the long barrel pistol. We know that as a fact. And this whole thing with the muzzle loading revolvers, you know, they try and find sneaky backdoor ways to make things as difficult as possible to close down people's business. And, you know, there's no time limit that the border force can take in reviewing it. There's, you know, despite the fact that there are quite a few Westlake muzzle loading revolvers out there on the market already in people's possessions, this isn't a new thing, right? And they've obviously taken this line of, well, we really don't like these, so how is a way that we can completely disrupt this guy's business? We just hold on to the parts that he needs, maybe even hold on long enough that he has no income, certainly can't develop new products because he hasn't got the cash flow to be able to invest, and you know, hopefully he gives up shuts up shop and retires, and then he's out of our hair. That's one way to completely kill the muzzle loading revolver, the modern muzzle loading revolver, dead in the water. Perhaps the research that he's doing at the moment, the development that he's doing, he's going to raise the bar again as far as muzzle loaders or long barreled pistols are concerned. Perhaps the Home Office are aware of his plans and they want to cut him off at the knees. I think it's absolutely disgusting what they are doing. You know, this is a guy, he's an RFD, right? I don't know if he's Section 5 himself. I wouldn't be surprised if he was. Like, you know, this is a trustworthy member of society, holding a registered firearms dealer, has been making guns for literally decades, and then suddenly, all of a sudden, they decide, oh no, we don't, you know, we're going to hold these illegal firearms. Like, well, maybe like give him the stock, you know, innocent until proven guilty. Maybe can you prove that they're illicit? No, we need to get an expert. Well, maybe, you know, as the actual expert on muzzle loading revolvers, you should give them to me. Allow me, like, if you're going to find that these are Section 5, that these are prohibited, then I'm already screwed. Like, I've already sold hundreds of these things, so doesn't matter if you just give me a few more. Hand it over to him. Complete your investigations. You're going to find what everyone has found when they've dealt with him in the past, that he knows what he's doing and he knows the firearms law a lot better than they do, and no harm, no foul. I would seriously recommend, if there is a mechanism to do so, that I wouldn't be surprised again if he's not already doing this, but he should be suing them, right? This is a demonstrable loss of income and an interference of business. They shouldn't be allowed to get away with that. You know, if they want to make a call, which they have, you know, we think this is prohibited, make that call. But if you're wrong, live with the consequences. You know, this has been going on now for over a year, as far as his updates lead you to believe. You know, there's no update of they're now back selling, which is a real shame. And it's something else that, because of people's misunderstanding of firearms law, I'm going to have to wait even longer to be able to buy one of these guns. Yes, I know I've got a fairly significant hurdle in front of me already, but once that's been, you know, overcome, when someday, like this, I've been seriously contemplating what is the first gun that I'm gonna go out there and buy when I have the certificate. Like, you know, there's going to be enough slots on the firearm certificate to make it interesting, and this is a serious contender. The Alpha is a serious contender. You know, I don't want it to be something, for me personally, I want it to be something that's not to do with competition. It's not to do with when you sort of, you know, the competition that I do so much of. I don't want it to be like a serious tool gun, if you get what I mean. I want something that I'm just going to go out there and shoot for the pure enjoyment of it, not to be super competitive with it. You know, am I going to try and find some competitions that you can go and shoot the the as Alan Westlake's with, or the Westlake Engineering muzzle loaders? Probably, but it's just one of those. I want to be able to go down to the range for a couple of hours with it, load it up there on the bench, fire some shots, and just enjoy it. And I think this is, you know, like it's tied up in my mind, you know, the either the Alpha, or like a Mosin Nagant, or maybe even an Enfield, like being one of the first guns that I go out and buy after I get my certificates, just for the pure enjoyment of going out there. And like, again, I potentially would love to own more of his firearms, and, you know, maybe even build a collection out of it. Like, this is a serious bit of history of our firearms lore, and the landscape of our firearms today. We would not have like a whole category of firearms if this guy did not exist. So yeah, I think it's pretty disgusting. Hopefully he does get it sorted out as quickly as possible. Again, if there's anybody that thinks that they can help with Border Force, Home Office, the NCA in getting these frames released for him, please get in contact. You can go on his website. All of the contact details are on there. It's westlakeengineering.com, and he's got a contact us page, so you can go in there and drop him a line. But yeah, an absolutely incredible person. I think we're lucky to have people like this within our community that are willing to go out there and stand up and say, no, it's not about what you like or what you dislike, it's about what the law is. And if you're saying these are what the goalposts are, we're going to stay firmly within them, but we're going to get right up to the line. We're going to get up as far to the line as legally allowed, because that's what the goalposts are. But yeah, really nice bit of kit. And yeah, if you want to learn more about the gun and see how it's loaded up, a bit more about the history as well, you can I mean, like, just this was a clip from one of the shows. I think that's personally that's the configuration that I would go for, the 2-inch. I've got a thing about like snub nose. I just think they look sexy as hell. So that would probably be what I would go for when I've got the slots. But yeah, he's usually at a lot of the shooting shows, Northern Shooting Show, Target Shooting Show, British Shooting Show, I think. So he has everything on display, and you can see a few different articles within there. Like, he's got the Browning butt mark, he's got an arms core version that looks like an LBR, probably an Alpha LBR. I think that's the Target variant, and then it looks like he's got the 2-inch, although yeah, 2-inch, probably 4-inch, and then a 6-inch. So yeah, I would recommend, like, my experiences with him is that he's more than happy to sort of talk shop. So if you see him at a show, go up there, just go up there and say thank you, right? Just say thank you for what you've done for firearms here in the UK, because the guy absolutely deserves it. Let's have a look what you guys are saying and what you think of that. Barrel, chamber, cylinder frame, body, receiver, breech block. What are you? Other mechanisms for containing pressure or discharge at the rear of the chamber and any item. Oh, is that what you were saying? Not assembled, not capable of use. Lots of Section 1, Section 2 guns share common parts with guns that would be Section 5. Yeah, so the way, in terms of the Section 5, and the reason that that's all so complicated is if a gun has been in a Section 5 configuration, whether or not, there are some people that argue with this, but the general safe line on it is if a gun has been in a Section 5 configuration, either within the UK or outside, then it is deemed, or it's made up into that configuration. It's deemed to sort of always be in that configuration, or to always be of that level of category. So, you know, if they, this is why I remember the Icon Arms IP226, I think it was, the Sig Sauer long barrel pistol. That's why they were so expensive. Like, this was, you know, a good probably to 10 years ago that they were making these guns, and even then they were like £1,800. You know, people gawp at the KMR at today's rates of inflation, and this was 1,800 quid like a good while ago, and it was because he had to buy the component parts individually from Sig Sauer, ship them over, and then assemble them into a gun, so that they had never been assembled into a Section 5 form previously. Like the analogy that Mike Jakes used to use is, if you went to Mercedes and asked them for every single component of a car, you'd end up spending 3 or 4 times what the actual complete value of the car was. So, you know, this is why it's so difficult for us to get long-barreled firearms or muzzle loaders in modern configurations, because a lot of the big manufacturers are just not interested in selling the parts or the core parts in the quantities that we would require, or even making the guns as a Section 1 configuration within the factory. You know, we're lucky that Walther was convinced to do it. That's why we have the PPQ and the 1911 Gold Cup. We're lucky that GSG decided to do it. That's why we have the 1911 GSG. That's why we have the Firefly. There are talks and rumors about there's a distributor that has said that they're interested in making a Glock. Of course, Caliber Innovations already make a Glock, but again, from talking to those guys, it's not an easy process because they have to go out there and source the bits. Like, Glock does not like selling component parts, certainly not to be made into a UK legal LBP. So it's incredibly difficult to get hold of those parts to be able to make it in. Therefore, you can't make them in huge numbers. It's harder to produce. It costs more money, which all makes things less viable. You know, KMR was convinced by Shield to make the CZ Shadow 2 because luckily what we're seeing is long-barreled pistols are becoming more popular. So distributors and people that are importing them into the UK are able to justify bringing them in higher numbers, so they can go to these factories and actually make it more attractive to them and say, look, I'm not just going to be buying 10 or 20, I'm going to bring them in 100, 200 quantities, which, again, for some of these manufacturers, it's like, it's not even, again, it's still not even worth it for us. But, that's why we don't have like a CZ, an LBP. It's a KMR. It's a clone variant of the Shadow, a very good one, I might add, but it's a smaller firearm manufacturer where they were able to meet their minimum quantities. So, the reason that Border Force are, I think, getting a little bit confused is they're saying that the frame, well, that's from a Section 5 firearm. Well, no, it's not from a Section 5 firearm. It's never been a firearm. It's not registered as a firearm, and it's never been configured as a firearm. It's okay, the frame is a controlled part, but it's like a barrel, right? It's what you end up putting that barrel on that sort of makes the gun. It technically wouldn't be illegal. Well, actually, the muzzle loader is a really good example. The barrels are chambered in 357, right? So that could go, a 2-inch snub-nosed barrel, rifled 357, could be put on a Section 5 firearm. It could be made into a 357 Magnum revolver, but it's not. It's put on a muzzle loader. So that barrel is still Section 1. It can come into the country as Section 1. The frame is obviously a little bit more confusing because they're going, yeah, but that's going to be a revolver. And Westlake's like, yeah, that's the whole point. It's just a UK compliant. Mark Lawton was at Phoenix last night. We had a Western night, lever action, LBP, MLR, and side by side against the clock. Great fun, I'm sure it was. Again, full video coming out very soon of the Phoenix shooting range. 100% you guys should be checking that video out because it's a fantastic range. If you're ever in the Barnsley area or you live close, you should drop in, honestly. Black Guinea Pig, English Shooting. Have you heard much about the lead ban? I have heard conflicting things about the lead ban. Some saying the response has surprised the government, which is good. I have personally heard through work that the lead ban is just awaiting rubber stamp. Sadly, the people who said that will have good info, civilians who specialise in munitions and the effect on the environment, and advise government. So as far as I'm concerned, what's going on with the lead ban at the moment is we're due another consultation, I think it is. There's one additional step to happen before things actually start happening either way. Cool. So someone watching the stream feeding me a bit of information, but I will I'll keep that between us. But thank you nonetheless. You know who you are. This doesn't seem to be isolated. Merseyside Armourer and Rude Fat Dog are also having issues that they have posted about. You know, it's like a backdoor ban. We don't like it, but we can't change the law. So, well, they can change the law, but it's a hell of a lot harder. We just hold on to their stuff. Like, we just give Border Force the tip off and go, look, next time you see this shipment going to this person, hold it and say this. You know, again, even if they give it back, even if they're able to go and sue them, like, the damage could be done to the company. If the company ends up folding in the meantime, like, yeah, okay, they can probably go and sue them and have a nice retirement fund, but then everything they've worked towards has been destroyed. Their business is gone, the products are gone, the firearm community and them lose out massively. Border Force has destroyed a commercial rift that was meant to come my way before the deadline I was given to provide at least one form of defense against prohibition, which I gave over 10. I've heard also a lot of stories of Border Force and rifts previously as well. The Home Office have never responded to my formal request as to why Section 1 LBP LBR cannot be considered as suitable for Home Office use, as they comply with exactly the same legislation as Section 1 rifles, tumbleweed. I can actually, I know why they're not suitable for Home Office club use. Is because the exemption doesn't exist for them to be used. So there is nothing in law, as far as I'm aware. My interpretation of it is that there is nothing in law from stopping a club from putting a long-barreled pistol on or a Section 1 shotgun on their certificate. Right, they can apply for the slot, and the slot can be issued. But the way that Home Office approved clubs work under the law has to give permission for people to be able to use firearms in certain circumstances. So, the miniature rifle exemption, section 11.3, section. Anyway, the miniature rifle exemption permits anybody who is not a prohibited person to be in possession of a .22 up to a .223 caliber rifle, right? So that's it. That's how anybody, regardless of their their FAC status, their club membership status, anyone that's not a prohibited person can be in possession of a .22 semi-auto rifle whilst they are conducting themselves on a miniature rifle range, or they are conducting a miniature rifle range. Within a Home Office approved club, there is the Home Office approved club exemption, which allows members of Home Office approved clubs to use specific firearms while they are a member, for the purposes of the club. Unfortunately, within that exemption, it only states rifles and muzzle loading firearms. So the only guns that can be used under that exemption are rifles and muzzle loading firearms. Technically, yes, and there have been people that have successfully fought this in court and won. There is no legal definition of what a long-barreled pistol is. It meets the criteria of a rifle. It has a rifled barrel, or a long arm. It's got a rifled barrel. It's got barrel over 12 inches and a total length over 24 inches. The term long-barreled pistol is something that has been created by the police, and it has been argued, well, it's nonsense having to have a separate LBP slot, a long-barrel pistol slot on your firearm certificate, because a long-barrel pistol doesn't actually legally exist. It is a fabrication or a creation. However, the police do put them in their own category. They do treat them, as sort of does the Home Office, they do treat them as a separate category of firearm, which isn't a rifle, so you can't use them. Obviously, a Section 1 shotgun is a shotgun, it's not a rifle, so you can't share that firearm, a Section 1 gun, under a club exemption as well. So it's not again the case that it can't be considered. It's just there's no legal mechanism for people to lawfully shoot them. You would just be in possession of a, as far as the Home Office is concerned, a prohibited firearm to you. You don't have the authority to be in possession or the exemption to be able to shoot it. Now, it wasn't, as far as I'm aware, it wasn't done intentionally. It was just an oversight, mainly because the term long barrel pistol was fabricated out of thin air, and I don't think the Home Office ever foresaw the Section 1 shotguns needing to be shared. Again, practical shooting, like, that probably wasn't really on their radar, and probably back then people just, they were wildfowlers that predominantly used Section 1s. So yeah, that's sort of the long and short of it, of LBPs and shotguns. Again, all it would take is a very, very slight amendment to the firearms law to say, all Section 1 and Section 2 firearms within this Act can be shared under a Home Office approved club, right? That's all all that would have to be changed. And it is ridiculous that on one hand somebody can go and shoot a 50 cal under the Home Office approved exemption, but you're not allowed to go and shoot an LBP. You can go and shoot a straight pull 223, but you can't go and shoot a Section 1 shotgun. Like, it's really is one of those areas that just is nonsensical and should be changed. And I've had various discussions with subscribers actually quite recently about this, and it really needs to come from the organizations. It's something that really needs to be pushed for, lobbied for politically with our organizations. I'll leave it at that. How do you still not have your firearm certificate? It's one of life's great mysteries. It's happening, I think, at some point. Again, I feel less personally attacked at the moment, for once. Genuinely, just Hampshire is just not functioning. It's not that I'm sure it might be, but I don't think it's actually the case of my application has been put in a drawer 3 corridors down, padlocked, not to be touched until 2030. They are just not issuing certificates, or if they are, it's incredibly slowly. So it's just, I'm in the pile somewhere. I'm sure they will get round to me at some point. Alberto, yesterday I shot the 9mm lever action M4, and it was using Glock mags, and all was terrible. I would never spend as much as it cost for a Franken gun. Gun laws are forcing people to do terrible things, and I get that. There's a certain sentiment of that with long barrel pistols. Why the hell would anybody go for a Franken pistol? And I'm sure people can argue this the other way, but my approach is it's better than nothing. There is still a sport to be had with long barrel pistols. There is still training. Like, if you want to go abroad and shoot full bore handguns, then LBPs will help. Certainly not with the recoil, but they will help. It is still the same muscle memory. Picking up a Walther PPQ long barrel pistol or picking up a 9mm, does, you know, the grip's exactly the same, the controls are exactly the same, your holstering and drawing is pretty much exactly the same, you know, muscle memory for loading, all of the above. You know, with the KMR and the CZ clones, you know, of course, you know, the KMR is out there at the moment, but there is the Antrag Zenith that will be coming out from Cotswold Classic Arms, as well as the Korths. We will be hopefully getting hold of one of those because they look sexy. Another LBR available for the UK market, absolutely brilliant. But, you know, they're based on the CZ Shadow, an incredibly popular competition gun out there on the international circuit. So if you're using a KMR or an Antrag, and you're running that within UK LBP competitions and you're going down, when you go and pick up a 9mm CZ Shadow 2, it's going to feel incredibly familiar. And this is something that certainly I could have benefited from, and you know, if I wasn't hindered by people's assumptions or thoughts of what the laws were rather than what they actually were. But, you know, I was hoping to do a lot more shooting myself with the KMR previously, because, you know, Maglow's got one in the armory, and we are developing products for it and testing with it regularly. And of course, as a servant of an RFD, I can shoot an LBP, I can shoot a Section 1. We sort of need to for the function of our business. And I was hoping to do some competitions and, well, basically any opportunity possible to test and use that gun and, you know, be more familiar with it, so that, you know, it's what I was going to be shooting out at the Pan Ams. It's what I ended up shooting out in the Pan Ams, and the gun just felt alien to me. You know, I never had the opportunity to use it in competition. You know, going down the range is sort of one thing, or, you know, just doing some dry drills is one thing. But, you know, I really feel like I missed, you know, the first stage of the Pan Ams. Like, firstly, I didn't understand that within production you didn't have to have the safety engaged. That made a big difference when I was told that I could start with it off, you know, production and all that. But yeah, the gun felt alien. So I spent the first day just getting familiar with the gun. So, you know, somebody that may want to go and shoot internationally with 9mm CZ, you would benefit from shooting that gun as an LBP version as much as possible. You can then hit the ground, you know, maybe not hit the ground running, but jogging or a fast walk. I had my ticket renewed this week, which includes a Buckmark LBP, an Alpha 357, and a Repro 1858 Remington converted and proofed many moons ago to Nitro by Dick Kershaw. Awesome stuff. So you are a fan of the muzzle loaders and the LBP, another man of distinction, I can see. I'd love a LBP in 22 WMR. There's a lot of people that I think would like an LBP in 22 WMR. I know there are a couple of companies that are working on that. I'll leave it at that. M. Gabriel, being from Missouri, I got to go back and figure out what the hell is going on here. Be right back. I don't know at what point you said that, but that's usually anybody from America spends when they first. Well, I know, you know, you are a regular Mr. M, but yeah, that's what a lot of people for internationally spend their time doing when looking at our laws and our shooting over here. Like, you know, I had a comment today actually on the LBP video that I did explaining what an LBP was, of somebody going, so have you seen a reduction in firearms offences since having to put long rods on there and long barrels because they're harder to conceal? I don't know if he was intentionally trying to be funny, but I did point out the same old stats that, of course, since 1997, firearm offences have only increased, and still today the single largest proportion of firearm offences are committed with handguns, without the rod, without the long barrel, and that, to my knowledge, there has never been an offence committed with a long-barreled pistol here within the UK. So of course the antis are going, oh, it works, the rod and the barrel, it works, it's solved crime, they've never been used in a crime, they're brilliant. If we just put a long barrel and a long rod on every criminal's gun, it would never be used in crime again. Yeah, that's anti-logic for you right there. Despite the fact that there are LBPs out there where you can quite literally remove the rod with your bare hands. Not naming names on that one. Happy, took less than 2 weeks for my FAC to drop through the door after my interview. Hampshire just don't like you. Well, thank you for spoiling my thank you for spoiling my delusion. Let me just screenshot that. It's difficult having a mic. I'm sure that was flattering right there. I'm in like zero fucks mode now, if I'm going to be completely honest. You know, anything that I can use to say you're treating me differently, you know, you're delaying me. I still think they're being an absolute cluster, if I'm going to be completely honest, and they will use any opportunity to delay, but they're still taking a very, very long time for everybody else. So it's not just necessarily me. Tony Vicker, minimum 30cm barrel, 60cm overall length, semi-auto, M22 rimfire only. The rest rifle, carbine, LBR, LBP, LBR, just semantics. Yeah, well, in terms of the measurements, it's sort of tomato, 12 inches, 30 centimeters, or 24 inches, 60 centimeters. There will be a very, very, very slight difference. I don't actually know what they use within the law, whether it's centimeters or inches. That could be very, very important. Only guns. Hope it takes 2 weeks for mine. Last probation session next week. Good to hear. And talking about the obvious effect that having these silly long barrel pistols within our laws, within our community, has on the effect of reducing crime. Let's get on to our next topic. You know, I like a good 3D printing gun, a 3D printed gun story. Deadly 3D printed weapons being traded between gangs on are the streets. Latest threat. That's not a particularly good worded title. I guess it's on the streets. Late on this, whatever. Are the streets' latest threat? Okay, right. Just full on dyslexic there. Hybrid guns like the semi-automatic SGC-9 can be made in days by combining 3D printed components with metal parts that can be smuggled into the UK or sourced from a hardware shop. I really don't know why you would be smuggling parts that you can just go and buy from a hardware shop. Also, is it smuggling? If you're bringing something into the country that you can just go and buy from a hardware shop, from your local B&Q or Wix, other hardware shops available, like, is that smuggling? Like, oh, I'm going to buy some screws. I'm going to smuggle them. Oh, I'm going to get some of them American screws, smuggle them over here. But this was the bit that, really, just sort of music to my ears in a sense, not in a good way. Deadly 3D printed weapons are being traded between gangs, posing a new threat on the streets. The National Crime Agency warned. So why is, new threat? I think the first video I made on 3D printed firearms was 3, maybe 4, even 5 years ago. This is not, like I said then, then it was a new threat, right? Then it was really, or even Defence Distributed. When did they sort of roll on the scene? That could be even longer. But this is not a new issue, right? But what I said originally back then was that the police have no idea, the likes of the Home Office, the NCA, have absolutely no idea of how revolutionary 3D printed firearms would be to the criminal market, right? Incredibly cheap to produce, getting even easier to produce with and even cheaper in terms of the equipment that you need to produce, and they are completely untraceable because they're getting easier and cheaper to make. They become disposable. You know, the whole thing about criminals, you know, if you end up using a gun, then you owe a guy a lot more. If it comes back if you come back with the same amount of bullets you went with, you get like a discount, because once a gun becomes hot, once it's been used in a crime, then there's a potential link to it through the ballistic forensics. If the gun is made out of, you know, minimal metal parts and plastic, you go and chuck that in a bonfire, right? It's gone, right? You're just going to go and print another one for the next time that you use it, or you'll have 3 or 4 available, so you just dispose of the one if you end up using it. It comes as the head, and you know, it's just I don't get why it only seems literally within the last year that the police and these agencies have suddenly gone, oh, we might have a problem here. This might actually be a real problem. You know, when someone like myself 5 odd years ago sat down and went, this is going to be a huge problem, right? Admittedly, it's a huge problem because nobody knows how to deal with it, right? What do? Ban 3D printers? That is not a sensible suggestion, I might add. But like, what are you going to do? Ban 3D printers, right? And that's why it's so revolutionary, because it's, you know, there's no risk of getting caught smuggling them within, you know, into the country. In my mind, there's less of a chance of getting caught if you set up your own factory, because, you know, you buy a 3D printer. Like, how many people have a 3D printer now, right? That's not suspicious, right? And also, like, unless it's actually on the bed being printed, you know, it's a lot harder to trace, because if it's a brand new printed gun, it's going to have no you know, forensics on, you know, in terms of gunpowder. And, you know, so they bring a dog in, you shove that gun in a floorboard, a sniffer dog isn't going to pick it up, right? Because it's not being exposed to drugs, money, or, you know, explosives, right? Or powder. So, you know, very hard to detect when they are made. Very easy to make. Having a 3D printer there on your desk is not, you know, is not a crime yet. I think, you know, the whole thing about, you know, everyone goes, yeah, but what about Lutty and all of that? Making one of those guns takes time, right? It also takes a lot of tools, and also those tools leave a forensic fingerprint, right? So if that gun is recovered at a crime scene, right, they can and have in the past matched up tool marks to tools in people's sheds or workshop, right? So there, in my mind, there's a lot of a much bigger risk, right, in terms of going out there and fabricating your own gun with, say, more traditional methods. 3D printing, a lot lower risk for the criminals, a lot more accessible, and cheaper, disposable, less traceable. It's everything that they want. It comes as the head of MI5 said, far-right extremists are increasingly trying to obtain guns or make their own. Last month, the Met raided a makeshift 3D printed arms factory in northwest London, in one of the largest seizures of parts for these firearms. Hybrid guns like the semi-automatic FGC9 can be made in days, I think personally it will be made a lot quicker than that, combining 3D printed components with metal parts that can be smuggled into the UK or sourced from hardware shops. Again, don't really think it's smuggling. One producer in Florida sells metal parts as wind chime sets to avoid detection for online orders. Christian Ashwell, head of firearms threat at the NCA, said, "We are seeing the emergence of viable 3D weapons appear in the UK and across Europe, including the sharing of designs online." Again, that has been going on for at least half a decade now, right? And 3D printed firearms have appeared in the UK and Europe again for a number of years. I think that's the FGC 9. It's, you know, very rudimentary, but, you know, they work. With international partners, whilst it is still rare, we are seeing hybrid 3D printed weapons appear in criminal markets. The hybrid weapons are primarily seeing carbine 3D printed components with metal parts such as barrels and springs to create them. Glenn Lawrence, Chief Technical Officer at Firearms and Law Enforcement Consultancies, Acrobus Solutions, said the situation has changed significantly in 2 years. Again, I honestly wouldn't agree with that. I would say that, you know, it's certainly improved, but there were viable guns being printed 2-3 years ago. I think it's just a case that they've only really found out about them now. He added there are 2 categories of 3D guns which has changed that. There are hybrid weapons like the FGC9 and the PKC, or part kit converted firearms which have bits of real firearms. The hybrid firearms have really come on. Don't forget there's even another section of 3D printed firearms which is completely 3D printed firearms, right? With no additional bits. And that's where the fear is coming from. They took the parts, some of them are easy to make. The instructions for the new Mark 9 SGC9 are 194 pages long, and you can use them to make a gun mostly undetected. Again, that is, I think, the biggest attraction to criminals is lowering their risk. I'm not actually like for obvious reasons, I stay well clear of stuff like this online. Actually going and looking for, you know, I will go on, I won't say reputable newspapers, but I will go on mainstream newspaper sites, YouTube, Facebook, and look at things like that. I don't go straying anywhere which is likely to lead me into trouble, or be used against me moreover. But you can see like all of that. You know, you can buy all of those components, the hammer, the trigger, you know, and all of those components. You can buy those off the shelf in any gun shop, right? The springs as well, like, you know. So those are the most firearm-ish components, all of which can be ordered legally within the UK. None of those are restricted or controlled. Even a firing pin, although I don't know if that is actually a firing pin from a real gun, or it's something that's been turned and manufactured specifically for this. But again, buying a firearm pin, you can buy one. A firing pin, you can buy one online, sent to your door here within the UK. Not a problem at all. Florida's MAF Corporation says the metal components for the FGC9 and launched its floral good time chime. Like, I mean, in terms of the responsibility, I know I'm just repeating it. I'm sort of doing it unintentionally. But if the newspaper actually had any sort of self-respect or you know, any brains, like, don't start putting where you can actually go and buy them. Again, I know I'm showing you guys and amplifying it, but they don't need to know. They don't need to know. Like, oh yeah, there's this really bad company called X, you know, their website address is this. You can buy all of this really dangerous stuff from it. Please don't go and do it. Like, just don't mention the company's name. Like, you fucking idiots. Like, anyway. So FGC is also known for fuck gun control, making 3D printed weapons in the US is legal. Just to point out, making 3D printed firearms in the UK is also legal if you have the right, if you hold the right authority. And we've been through this previously. Oh god, this is a slippery bloody side slope. Just as a quick interjection, I like talking about the fact of the law, right? Of what you can and you can't do. I know there's a lot of people that don't particularly like a lot of the things that I publicise that you can do lawfully here in the UK, but it's legal. So deal with it, right? It's not, we can have a discussion of what you think is bad. What the law is the law, and I'm very passionate about firearms owners and certificate holders and people with any sort of passion for firearms in the UK to know what the law is, to know what they can and can't do, right? Because that's how you stay on the right side of it. And on the flip side of saying certainly what you can't do, I think it's very important for people to be educated on what you can do. Holding a firearm certificate, not an RFD, holding a firearm certificate allows you to make your own guns, right? You have lawful authority to possess the firearms that you have slots for. Yes, it does get complicated when you're making your own firearm because you need a slot for every pressure bearing part until the gun becomes one. So that technicality, just, you could, there are people that have slots for spare barrels, right? There are people that have slots for spare uppers, spare lowers in different, for different calibers, right? So it's not out of the realms of possibility to have multiple slots for multiple pressure bearing components and controlled components, right? So, your barrel, your upper, your lower, and your bolt. But if you have that, if you have a slot for a barrel, you have a slot for an upper, a lower, and a bolt, you could 3D print one of these guns completely lawfully, right? Because you have authority to be in possession of them. It doesn't state in the firearms how the gun, what the gun should be made out of, or what manufacturing technique should be used. 3D printing is being used more often within industry for mass manufacturing, right? I think Maglo's a pretty good example of a firearms of a company within the firearms industry that utilizes 3D printing for mass manufacture. So it is a viable manufacturing method. More and more companies, car companies, your SpaceX, all of this are using 3D printing in there. So this whole notion that, you can't 3D print a gun within the UK legally is just complete rubbish. Yes, I know that I have promised you guys that I will document lawfully that process, document the lawful 3D printing of a gun. Obviously, as you know, it has to be done right. It has to be done lawfully, legally, first and foremost. It is something that is still very high up on the list to prove, right? The reason you need an RFD, so everyone go, you can't make a gun unless you've got an RFD. No, you can make one with an FAC. What you need an RFD for is to sell that gun, right? Is to trade in firearms, to offer professional services for with firearms or for firearms, to work on it professionally. So you can. It says nothing about manufacturing. This has been cleared up many times. It's not hearsay. It's not an interpretation. That is what the law states. What I would, is very much on the plan to do is to actually send a 3D printed gun to the proof house, right? That is just a technological bucket list, right? Magload is all about pushing the boundaries of manufacturing and techniques and design, and the amount that would be learnt from that is really transferable in our understanding of different manufacturing techniques for firearms. So that is the plan at some point. Again, it would be done completely lawfully, and of course we do have the RFD, so it's even more double down on it. But yeah, design, 3D print, proof, and maybe even offer for sale a 3D printed firearm. There's nothing inherently wrong with a 3D printed gun. The same way there's nothing inherently wrong with a CNC machined gun, right? The issue is that criminals are using the guns. It doesn't matter if it's made out of plastic, metal, or it's a ceramic Glock that is untraceable in metal detectors. It is becoming that time of year. Hans is slowly falling down the Magload advent calendar. But yeah, so this notion that 3D printing guns are just inherently evil, no. In the same way that any firearm is inherently evil, it's just bollocks. It's how it's used. If it's used safely, responsibly, and most importantly, lawfully, then who cares, right? The issue is that the criminals are using these guns unlawfully. And at the end of the day, like, we want to learn more about how these processes work, what techniques these people are using, because if we learn how, like, the ins and outs of it, then that's how you end up preventing, right? To catch a criminal, you've got to think like a criminal, as the cliche saying goes. Like, the more a company like Magload and ourselves can understand about these processes lawfully, that's how you actually understand ways of preventing, stopping, or hindering the manufacture, design, or use, in detecting, what are signs, what are more detectable signs, what are, the forensics of the use, like, again, the police force and all this, they have just, they're like 5 years behind when it comes to this technology. Never mind even starting to understand the forensics of 3D printed firearms, right? So it takes companies to go out there and do this sort of research to fully understand it, so that they can actually work with the police and go, look, this is what you need to look for, and I would have absolutely no problem working with the police or neighbours if we could help them with something that would help prevent crime, right? I don't think there's any lawful shooter out there that wouldn't want to see less gun crime, right? And if there's something through our knowledge, our research, our development that can aid in that, why wouldn't we share it, right? But of course, Hampshire Constabulary just, I talk about 3D printed guns and they decide to send uniform officers around to my house because, fuck you, really. Meanwhile, 3D printed firearm factories in London, I even merely suggest about legally 3D printing a gun, and it's like, oh, no. You can't have dirty thoughts like that. No, not in this day and age. In fairness, the officers were actually pretty cool and felt a little silly afterwards. Anyway, just need to remind you, hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. Sam Davison, thank you very much. Appreciate your support. Can firearms in the UK be legally owned by a trust rather than an individual, provided there are people responsible? When you say a trust, I think it depends on your definition of a trust. But yes, firearms can be owned by an entity rather than a person. So a club, right? A Home Office approved club is not a particular person. Well, there is technically somebody that holds the club certificate, but the guns are owned by the club, not that individual. With an RFD, right? It's not the, yes, again, there will be, well, no, it's the company that holds the RFD. So it's the company name. There might be a name of a director or names of directors on that RFD, but the RFD is for the company. So again, that's an entity, and the guns are not owned by an individual. They are owned by the company, as far as I understand it. So yeah, it's an entity, not a person that owns them. So yeah, that's an interesting question. I'd be interesting to know why. That has never been asked. I've never come across that question before. It's very interesting. I'd be interested to learn why you're asking that. Hopefully it's for good reasons. South Yorkshire did my renewal in less than a month after my re-interview. Again, it's not, the issues with firearms licensing is not necessarily every firearms licensing department, but there's a lot of them. It is centimeters in law for section 1, inches for section 2. Classic mess about. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure, right? Do not take this as legal advice. I'm not a legal expert. I'm pretty sure if you what is exactly 12 inches in centimeters? So 12 inches is 30.48. Okay, so Yes, so you would end up making it bigger. So you would never actually be in that position. So if the absolute hard line limit is 30 centimeters and you use 12 inches, it's going to build in half a centimeter, 4.8 millimeter buffer. So yeah, like if it wasn't, if 12 inches worked out to like 29.8 centimeters, even if that was the case, I think there would be, I mean, as the letter of the law is written, you would have broken it, but I think you might, as mitigating circumstances, you might be able to say, well, hang on a minute, they use inches in section 2, and actually a lot of people, myself included, always refer to 12 inches. Maybe I should stop doing that and use 30. But maybe the reason that people refer to 12 inches rather than, centimeters is because, the maths builds you in a buffer. But yeah, that's it. That is interesting. It's interesting. Doesn't surprise me. Like, firearms law has made it a little bit more confusing. Really? Like, that's odd. I've never seen that before. Strict laws in Australia, did they not have another mass shoot? And did the criminal register their firearm? Exactly. So anytime rifle is said, you can also read carbine. That explains why people mention carbine and props up the LBP argument. Interesting. Wild Arms Research and Development. I sent this in the Discord the other day, but we just finished making a M202 rocket launcher using mostly 3D printed parts and composite parts and some aluminium tubing. No regulated parts and functional. As long as it's legal, I would love to see a video of it. 100 glowies watching. You're going to have to internet learn me on that one, Daniel. Proof house may be the issue on printed guns, but I don't see why. As long, the proof house. Let me just think about this. Well, I'm just trying to think. How involved is the proof house in the classification of firearms? Like, obviously they come from it from a fairly expertise position, but their job, as far as it's the proof house. It's more about safety and does it meet proof. If the proof house and even if the proof house was about classification, why does it matter? Again, 3D printed firearms are not prohibited, right? Just because they're 3D printed, right? If you make a muzzle loading 3D printed pistol, they smaller charge, smaller barrel, no length restrictions. Why have we not thought of a muzzle loader before? Dangerous thoughts are being had. But it's not dangerous. Why would I say dangerous? It's not dangerous. A 3D printed muzzle loading revolver, as long as it meets proof, is perfectly fine. Right? If we're not doing that because it's dangerous. Did it explode? No. Have you tested it? No. How do you know it's dangerous then? Like, any gun coming from, like Holland could be dangerous. If it's like handmade, right? What if that's why the proof is there? Like, they are to, I'm sure they will get quite irate if you get it wrong a few times. like 12 prototypes later, and they're there like in the next room over with a bit of string, just like, yep. Right, well, that's going back in the box in pieces. Like, I'm sure if you send them enough guns that continuously explode, or every time explode, they're probably going to get a little touchy and be like, can you please just stop making guns that explode? But you know, this is where CAD and simulations and all of that comes in. Is you can simulate pressure, right? You to quite a high degree you can model it using industry standard engineering software. So you have a reasonable idea of what thicknesses are required, what material, what materials you need to use, and what properties those materials need to have. I think there would be a massive uproar if the proof house started getting political, saying that we're not going to proof 3D printed guns. Sorry, but as an RFD, you're not actually required to have a proofed gun. So in terms of doing your own testing, again, I would much rather somewhere like the proof house told us a gun was safe, just just having that knowledge. But RFDs are not required to have proofed guns because they're RFDs. Actually, if you're making your own gun under an FAC, you're not required to have it proofed. You're only required to have it proofed if you transfer it onto an If you're building it yourself and that's an odd. That's definitely going to make someone's head explode. Basically, an RFD needs to have a gun proofed if they're going to sell it to somebody with an FAC. That's when you need to have the gun proof, because you need to be able to say, I'm selling a safe gun. But if you make it yourself under the FAC and you write it on your own ticket, are you then technically you're transferring a non-proofed gun onto your FAC? That's actually an interesting potential flaw in the making your own gun. Interesting, but I'm sure it's like, well, I'm not selling it to someone else. Like, I'm a grown ass man. If I decide I want to go and shoot a gun that I've made myself, on my head be it. I'm a big boy. Play stupid games in the comments and you will be muted. Dan's just swinging that band hammer. Black Guinea Pig, it's millimeter for section 1 and inch for section 2, as the UK went metric between the acts and section 1 was never updated. That's, again, very, very interesting. You're just a fountain of knowledge. And I am interested, maybe you're going to end up having to change your username because of this, but just do want to give a quick shout out to Black Guinea Pig, as he has very kindly offered to send down a number of his bits and bobs for me to play with. That's right, I love playing with Black Guinea Pig's bits and bobs. That actually sounds a hell of a lot worse than I thought it would. Anyway, he's going to be sending down, I would do it to myself. He's going to be sending down, I think, an EOTech, a couple of EOTechs, actually, I think he said. So I'll be able to do a holographic versus red dot video. Of course, the most recent video on the channel was the Trijicon green dot versus red dot. And I did the Trijicon MRO review more recently as well. So yeah, that's a video that's been asked by a lot of you guys. Also, finally, thanks to Mr. Black Guinea Pig, I'll be getting my hands on a Raven. Lantac Towers starts to quiver. I'll be getting my hands on a Lantac Raven. I have previously had my hands on a Lantac Raven. We won't go into the debacle and the harassment that the person that gave it to me got. I hope you know what you're getting into, Mr. Black Guinea Pig. But yes, I decided that wasn't a representative gun. Gave Lantac a little bit of slack for once. But yes, if this Raven doesn't work, the review's going out. So you better make sure that it works. So yeah, and triggers and some other cool stuff as well. So yeah, big shout out to Black Guinea Pig for that. And if you guys, if any of you have a gun, equipment like the Mantis X10 or 10X, that was a subscriber that very kindly sent that down. So if there's gear that you want to see on the channel, that you want to send down, you want to drop off, whatever, please get in contact. You can drop an email to EnglishShooting at gmail.com or callum@maglode.co.uk. That's CALLUM at maglode.co.uk, or info@maglode.co.uk. Any method, any means of like that, just get in contact. At the end of the day, we have an armory at Maglode. There's the RFD. The big benefit as well for Connors is that if we have a gun that we've not seen before, or either of us has been able to get hands on with, it gives an opportunity for development with Maglode as well. So if there's any bits that you want developed for your gun as well, and you want to see it on the channel, bring it down to Maglode. Like, we're a hospitable bunch. Not only will we fondle and film your gun, we'll make you some cool shit for it as well. Like, what more can you ask for apart from the licking? But that's just gonna happen. Like, that is part of the contract, non-negotiable. You give me a gun, it's getting licked. It's my mark of respect. Richie Bray, yes, that's exactly what the proof house is for. Did the gun explode exactly what the proof house is for? Yeah. Again, I think after like the dozenth time, or after multiple times of gun exploding, there are going to probably be strong words had. Like, you're only meant to blow the bloody doors off. Imperial took men to the moon. Metric hasn't yet. Feet forever. Proofing is mental idea in the modern world, puts lots of stress into a gun that is not needed, making it more likely to fail. A holdover from when we had no better options. Now better tech exists. This was a really interesting point. If you remember with Kentucky Ballistics and the put a thumb in it, or whatever it was, he had those slap rounds and the 50 cal. The 50 cal exploded, ended up nearly dying. Quite literal miracle that he didn't. The gun that he used, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but the 50 cal is, it was designed and manufactured by, I think, a fairly small company. And one of my first questions when this happened, now I think the general consensus. Well, the general consensus was that it was bad ammunition, because a lot of people said that they looked at the gun. Let me just Kentucky Ballistics. 50 cal. So like, you probably, like, if you're into your shooting, you've probably seen this, right? So complete, like, epic catastrophic failure of the gun. Let me see if I can find out what gun. I know all of it. Serbu RN50. Thank you very much, Alexander. So yes, it was that gun. But anyway, the guy that designed and made it, like, what I jumped on straight away was, is there proofing in America? As it turns out, there isn't, right? And I was like, oh, well, there you go. That's freedom for you. People allowed to go and do their own stuff without having, a nanny little proof house telling you if you can go and shoot your big bad gun. As it turned out, the limits that he'd put in the gun were basically, that gun was capable of far exceeding the requirements for proofing within the UK. Right, so, and he had done it. He had done the calculations and was like, well, this is where most people are going to be shooting a 50 cal, like the absolute punchiest round, like, in existence at the moment is here. So it was sort of like, this is where people are going to be using it. That's really the absolute, like, that's a really spicy hot home load. I'm going to build it for that. And it was like an absolutely extraordinary margin of error, which far exceeded our requirements for proof. So yeah, you don't necessarily need a proof house to say that a gun is safe. I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea, certainly in a liability aspect for a business or a company, to hand over that, say, to somebody else, for somebody else to literally stamp it and go, this gun is good. Because then if it does explode, like as the manufacturer, you can go, well, hang on a minute, they said it was safe, right? And certainly within the civil service, it's all about passing liability. Oh dear. I think the biggest question from this live stream is what will come out first, Magload 3D printed LBP or Magload mags. Yeah, so on that, I was going to give you a mag update. Yeah, that's pretty much the update. So we were due to go up on Monday to the injection molders. Of course, I'm sure anybody in the UK would be well aware that we had some, I'm sure the newspapers made it out to be significant weather. But anyway, a small flurry of snow occurred. Transport networks lost their shit. If anybody has seen the scenes of the M25, it was absolute chaos. And our correspondent in Wales, Mr. Supermod Daniel Smerald, can confirm that things were a little dicey in Cardiff. Now, bearing in mind, and so Llanbradach is about, 20 minutes, maybe half an hour away from Cardiff, and the injection moulders are about 15 minutes away from Llanbradach. Llanbradach is where Pro Shoot Firearms is, both the shop and the range. It's where the Welsh Shotgun and Mini Rifle Championships are held every single year. Fantastic range, fantastic shop, fantastic facility all round. Go and check out Pro Shoot on Google. So you can find them on Facebook or Google. But yes, it was a little bit dicey. And bearing in mind that the road leading up to Pro Shoot, which is where we were going to do the production run test, yes, they were struggling to get up it in, Defenders and proper, Discoveries and proper 4x4s. So, me having the option of a front-wheel drive Volvo V50 or a rear-wheel drive Cayman GT4, Connor's with the option of a 4x4 Quattro TT, we didn't think it was necessarily sensible or beneficial to drive the 3 odd hours over to 3 odd hours to the injection molders on that day, only to either get stuck up, most likely ending up having to sleep round Daniel's house, getting stuck in snow or absolute travel chaos, and not be able to go out to the range and and test the match because the range was shut. People weren't able to get up there. So for once, this was literally an act of God. God is now interfering with the production of the magazines. We've been through a lot already with these mags, and now acts of gods are getting involved. However, we are rescheduling the meeting for next week, and the same applies as long as we can get there. There's going to be like a Royal Mail blockade, isn't there, on the M4? Like something's going to happen. The Severn Bridge is going to collapse. Like lightning bolts from the heavens. So we will, yes, it's the same premise. Rebooking the meeting for next week. We're going to be going up there, running off the production run, ensuring that they are to tolerance, tweaking the tolerance of them. Then we'd take a sample, maybe 10, 20, up to the range, run them all, ensure that again the tolerances are right, that the magazines are good to go and hit the button, relay what we need in terms of tolerance to the injection molders, and while we are there they will run off the full production run for pre-orders. So it's just been delayed another week. All these jokes about if we don't have them before Christmas, yeah, well, we are most likely gonna have them before Christmas. Just unfortunately, everyone that has been waiting 9 months most likely won't have them before Christmas. I think we're looking at Tuesday, going up there Tuesday. So if Royal Mail, actually starts doing its job, production run on Wednesday, it's probably going to go over to Thursday as well, but we should start being able to ship on Wednesday. So there's a chance if Royal Mail managed to clear the unprecedented backlog of mail. Yeah, Royal Mail's taking about on a guaranteed 24-hour service. Royal Mail is taking about 2 weeks. It's like everything's conspiring against us. But yes, so it's been knocked back another week. We're going to be getting the magazines on the Tuesday. Build, like assembly will occur on Wednesday. Whatever's assembled Wednesday will go out, and probably will run over into at least Thursday for the pre-orders. So there we go. There's the magazine update. I am sorry. It's just it is now genuinely company policy. No more pre-orders. We can't do this again. It's just, I mean, we've already got ourselves to blame, but no. And the only time we will pre-order is if the stock is literally sat in the warehouse, right? And I can't understand a reason why we would pre-order with stuff sat there, but anyway, we're just not pre-ordering ever again. Just, there used to be 1, maybe 2 products a year that we would do pre-orders for. Things would usually go pretty smoothly with those, and this has just made us very, very sick of the whole pre-order things. I did actually remember yesterday, and there's only a couple of people, and they will know who they are, but there were a lot of people that convinced us to open up pre-orders. I just had to throw that out, that people wanted this. Hindsight, right? So yes, it is happening. At least it's not a design or a production issue. It's literally a logistic issue now. So Christmas 2024. Oh, please don't joke. I can't do it. Which god is interfering with the magazines? All of them. Like, everyone hates us. Oh no, don't start making hashtags. It's my last tack shoot of the year next Monday. Will I see my new mags by then? When you say next Monday, do you mean this Monday coming, or the Monday? Do you mean a week Monday or the next Monday? Because a week Monday, potentially, Royal Mail dependent. We do have the option of UPS. So I don't know why I'm saying this, because I'm just going to get inundated with emails now. But we have started using UPS. So customers that, like, obviously our standard go-to mail is Royal Mail. Or shipper is Royal Mail, which usually works very well for domestic. We tend to use UPS for larger orders in terms of volume or weight, and also value. We use UPS for international. But if you have ordered mags, if you have ordered mags and they are ready next Wednesday, then we can use a 2-day service on on UPS, and you can we should be able to get them before Christmas. I don't know what the Christmas UPS cutoff is, but that is most definitely an option. And there's been various people that and we're saying to customers, look, it's taking and Christmas is coming up as well, but it's taking 2 weeks with Royal Mail at the moment, and if people need to, we can go to UPS. We do have an express UPS service, which is next day, but that is something we need to charge for, because it's not cheap. I think the last one we did was like 40 quid, and it's annoying. Like, we hate it. Like, it's annoying us. It's frustrating for us, because your customers, they're paying for a service that they're not getting, and we're being let down effectively by one of our suppliers. English shooting, proofing adds stress that will never go away. If aircraft are proof tested, they are scrapped. You only proof in the design phase. If you overstress a part by a huge amount, don't use it. Very good point. Oh yeah, all-wheel drive does not equal 4x4 surely. Yes, 100%. You know, like you can get like a Porsche Turbo is 4x4. Not exactly an off-road vehicle. Drop it off at mine on the way home. No, we need to ship everybody else's orders first, Daniel. You know, what if we don't have enough? Right, we've got to put everybody in. You know, we've got to use the queue system, and as you know, you're right at the back of the queue. Lots of sweets and mince pies. Then is that an offer? I've never sold so many 1522 mags. Roll on your backlog. Well, at least someone's benefiting, I guess. Meanwhile, wife is getting Xmas presents delivered from Amazon same day. Royal Mail is a mess right now. We haven't had mail at home in 2 weeks. Jesus. How many pre-orders are you going to run off? I won't confirm the amount of pre-orders that we've received, but the first batch is going to be 500, I think. Well, the first order was for 1,000 mags, and then it was like, well, what we do it in 2 500 lots. That should get you going. Now we're like, we just want what we need for the pre-orders. Like, if it saves us time, we're doing it. So it has really messed about. So I guess I confirm, like, no more than 500 for the pre-orders. It's still quite a considerable amount, which we're incredibly grateful for, and you know, everyone's being incredibly patient, and we understand that and we get that. Again, once the mag, we will be posting. So we'll be posting when the mags are ready and they are shipping. You will know about it. It'll be all over Facebook. We will be shouting about it. So if anybody does want their mags shipped by UPS or wants to come pick them up, then you can drop us a message and we can do that. But I would say don't message until, because what's going to happen is loads of people are going to message, my emails are going to fill up, and then they just have to sit there until the mags are ready. When the mags are ready, please get in contact and we can arrange that for you. You're having your mags dropped off on the way home. By whom, Daniel? There is something that I do want to touch on quickly. Run out of a little bit of time. I'll try and cover off the last 2 points. A little bit of an update or maybe clarification. So some of you may have seen this video both on the channel and also put it on Facebook, that both Connors and I enjoyed the finer things in life, going on a game shoot recently over at Charlton Park. Fantastic day. You can go and watch the full video on the channel, but it was just a pheasant shoot, not a partridge or anything. We weren't actually allowed to shoot any other game other than pheasant, or pigeon was fair game, but I don't think any pigeons were harmed during the day. So unfortunately, no pigeon spaghetti, but plenty of pheasant spaghetti. But an absolutely incredible day. But what I know has caught the attention, again, go and check this out on the channel or on Facebook if you want to watch the full video. But I know what's caught a lot of people's attention is who was running the day, which was Gun Trader. And yes, that Gun Trader, the Gun Trader that, this gets very technical, but in name, the Gun Trader that lost everybody's data on the dark web, including my own, including Connor's, and including a lot of other people's, a lot of our friends' data as well. So quite fairly, and always hold me to account, and I think quite fairly a lot of raised eyebrows are going, well, sorry, why are you associating yourself with them, after what they did? It's because it's under new management, right? It is still owned by the same people, but it's being managed by somebody new, and they approached us back at the British Shooting Show. It's quite an interesting conversation to begin with. So bearing in mind, I genuinely don't think there has been anybody more critical than what happened with the gun trader leak than me. Added to that, bearing in mind it was this channel that broke the news of the leak. And a big shout out to the people in Discord, you know who you are. It was Discord that first made me aware of the data leak. And because I know a fair amount of people within the shooting industry, I was able to very quickly verify that the data was real. So that gave me the confidence to go out and say, this is what has happened. So it was this channel that broke the story, and I still stand behind the fact that it was through, I think, a little bit of sort of everything, a bit of incompetence, a bit of stupidity, lack of care, that led to the data breach. And I may go a bit, but like it wasn't actually the gun trader website, as it turned out. It's actually a third party that was running the software, but they should have never had software that hadn't been updated to a newer version for security. So, and what certainly personally I was more pissed off about as a gun trader user, as somebody that had their data leaked, was the way that it was handled. And it was handled abysmally, right? There was no communication. It almost felt like it was our fault that our data was leaked. Like, it was like, you at the very least you need the decency to let people know as soon as possible, given the fact that it's giving the addresses of firearms owners, right? It's, a huge security problem. Personally, I ended up upgrading my security because of it, so it genuinely cost me money to sort of put my mind at ease. And I don't even have any guns here, right? But it was a real concern. But I'm not giving excuses for what happened. I think it was piss poorly managed, for lack of a better phrase. But myself and Connors, we're at the British Shooting Show, and this guy makes a beeline for us, and that normally puts me unease. It's like, this is going to go one or two ways. They're either going to they're going to know me and like me, or they're going to know me and really not like me, but he came up and he introduced himself, and he's like, said he was getting into the shooting industry, getting into shooting, and this and the other. He'd watched the channel, had found the channel very very helpful in understanding the dynamic of shooting, of the community and shooting sports within the UK. And then I was like, so, if you're getting into the shooting industry, who do you work for? Oh, I work for Gun Trader. What, that Gun Trader? Yes. Oh, okay. Before or after? Like, after. So this guy, I know he does watch the channel, but I'm not going to put his name. I'm sure he doesn't mind his name being put out there. This is something that I do want to approach with him and maybe see what can be talked about publicly, and maybe, because there's going to be stuff that I want to show on the channel, and this is why I'm involving with them, and because I think it's ultimately beneficial for the shooting community and the sport as a whole. But they've basically been brought in to clear up the mess, to change Gun Trader, to make sure that the leak never happens again, but also to rebuild it. It doesn't I think quite rightly, have a very good reputation, not just for the leak as well. There's many other reasons why people aren't particularly happy with Gun Trader as a company. And in terms of how it's worked, you know, the company that existed, that the leak happened with, that company doesn't actually exist now. There is a new company which the asset has been transferred and sold into, and you know, as far as I'm aware, the leak still, it was a significant cost to the owners. I know there's a lot of people out there that say it didn't cost them enough, for fair dues, but it was still not. They didn't get off completely scot-free financially, from what I understand. Again, there's a lot of stuff that, you know, I think has been told more in confidence. I would like to get that out, but I would like it to come from the horse's mouth to ensure that it is correct. But the thing that really has clicked it for me, and I really want to see where it goes, is that now under new management and with the team that is at Gun Trader, the attitude is like, you know, there's the business, the money generation side of thing. Like, everybody sort of knows what Gun Trader does, how it makes its money. But the way they're looking at it now is how to benefit shooting sports. Don't get me wrong, I think it's clear as day, and they're completely honest. It's about marketing, and it's about repairing the damage. But the team are genuinely passionate about unifying shooting sports. They're also incredibly passionate about showcasing lesser known areas of shooting sports. So what you've got to, you know, what was quite interesting for us is their keenness to involve practical shooters, right? We're very much in, you know, like, whilst we do everything, you know, I like to think of myself as a general. If it's got a trigger, I'll pull it. But, you know, we are, when we're put in a group of other shooters, if we segregate ourselves for a second, we are the practical shooters. And we are an area of shooting that is mostly ignored, that for the most part doesn't have a voice. And, you know, and areas of clay shooting and hunting and stuff like that. Like, everyone knows about EnglishShooting and, you know, about trap and, you know, maybe DTL and stuff like that. But, like, do you know about Fitask? Do you know about the smaller, you know, less known areas of clay shooting? And, you know, what Gun Trader have been doing more recently is putting groups of people from all areas of the community and the sport together. And it doesn't matter, you know, you have people that train gun dogs, you have captains of, you know, EnglishShooting teams, you have game shooters, you have countryside fashion influencers, and all of this sort of hodgepodge, like, group of people that ordinarily, even though we all enjoy the same hobby, just in different flavors, wouldn't get together. And what it's helping to do is actually, like, it's helping us make the wider community and people that are influential within the community aware of practical shooting. It's also making us aware of different areas. And, you know, bearing in mind that Gun Trader receives a huge amount of traffic, what they're currently in the process of doing is redoing their website. It was, I believe, meant to be out a lot sooner, but they're currently rejigging it, redoing it. And a big element of the website is using the traffic to showcase shooting, to show people different areas and to educate people of, you know, to demystify areas. One of the things that continuously happens is people refer to us as tactical shooters, but Gun Trader will expose practical shooting and, you know, maybe correct a few of the inaccuracies, you know, to other areas that would never have seen it. And I think ultimately the ethos that they have, I think the intention that they have and the vision is going to be massively important. I don't think there is any company or even organization that has the vision that the team at Gun Trader currently have for what they want to do what they want to do for the sport. And you know, the sort of click moment for me was when I was talking to them about, you know, plans for the new website and what they're going to do, and they're like, well, we get a huge amount of traffic, but we're trying to drive that to social media. And I'm going, no, that's not how. No, you use social media to drive traffic to your website, surely. And I'm like, no, that's not. You know, we've got the traffic, right? We now want to direct that traffic to for the positivity of the sport. We want to aim and focus that traffic into areas that need attention, on issues that need attention. You know, look at the the recent consultations. You know, the firearm safety consultation. How many more signatures would there have been if a company or website like Gun Trader had that as the landing page? You need to sign this now, and would be shown to hundreds of thousands of people. How many more people? How many more signatures? So I think they're very much on board of like, look, you know, we messed up, and we need to repair that. And actually, the best way we can repair that is doing massive good and doing more than what a lot of people have done. To unify and promote and better the sport. And, you know, I get it. There's some people that need to see a lot more, that need to, you know, but maybe we'll never forgive what happened and how it was handled. And the interesting thing is that if you're watching this channel, if you support this channel, if you subscribe, then you, in a way, are the sort of person to give somebody else a second chance. If you took things straight at face value, if you weren't prepared for people to have a second shot at things, then you wouldn't be following this channel. Because I've made mistakes in the past. I've paid the price. I think at this point, I've served my sentence. And yet a lot of you guys are incredibly supportive of me getting my certificates back and that. So, you know, I would say in terms of Gun Trader, you know, the first sign that it's like, you know, they're doing something bad and, you know, I feel it's negative, then I will step away. But all the time that I think what they are planning to do will be incredibly positive, then I will be involved with it. It's not, I know exactly, you know, nobody's actually called this out, but, you know, it was very much part of my thought process of going on that day. It's just going to look like they've thrown a game day at me and then suddenly look, right, I'm their number one biggest fan. I haven't forgotten what's happened. My own data was leaked, genuinely had concerns about how that data still could be used, right? But I'll give them a chance. If anybody is in a position to go, you know, people need the ability to learn from their mistakes and to have the chance to rectify it. You know, I can't sit here and say that somebody isn't allowed a second chance. So yes, anyway, I know that's probably a lot longer and a lot more faffy than I wanted it to be, but that's the down low, the long and the short of it with, you know, with Gun Trader, my association with it, you know, me going on days. So there will most likely be more. I do really want to try and get this guy to get him on the channel, because he is a bit of a funny in a good way, like in a humorous way. I think he will come across really well on camera, and he's not camera shy. He's running a channel, Instagram, which is all about, again, showing different areas of shooting, asking interesting questions, starting up interesting discussions, which again I'm all for. So yes, I'll try and get him on the channel. Perhaps he can talk a little bit more about what happened and what they are doing. Anyway, in before Gun Trader becomes the shooting lobbying organization we need. Like, I mean, that, you know, I'm not saying that's what they're going to do, but I think people will change their tune pretty quickly if Gun Trader turns around and goes, oh yes, we're going to put funds into getting handguns back. Everyone's going to go, what? You know, but they lost our data. Don't care. They're going to get us handguns. Like, it's going to be that sort of thing. It's, you know, yeah. But I think that's something that they would definitely work towards. Like, knowing a lot more about the company and the people that are involved, there is a fair amount of political influence that could be drawn upon if needed. A fair amount of sway, and I think it's far better to have that potential influence working for us as a community than against. And all the time I think it's working for us, then I will happily be there to say, look, do you think we should be looking at this area? Do you think we should be looking at that area? You know, rather than just people sitting from the top going, yeah, it's pretty all right from here. You know, the people that are actually going out there and, you know, the customers. You know what I mean? Anyway. Black Guinea Pig, do a K22 review as well. It is on the cards. Connor's Longthorn needs a review on the channel. Get some more shotgun reviews on the channel. Come on, man. I know Arian's helping out with the editing and filming now, but it's not exactly a full-time setup here. Like, we can only do so much. I mean, I've got 2 videos out this week. What more do you want? K22 review is definitely coming. A top 5 LBP video is definitely coming. It's not actually Connor's Longthorn. It was on loan, but we have been offered to have it. The gun was actually lent by Johnny from TGS Outdoors. That there is a lot of footage of us with him that will never see the light of day. I always thought he was a little bit... The more I've met him, the more I've spent time with him, you realise he's not maybe the character that some areas of the shooting industry think he is. After spending most of the day in a car with him, it was confirmed. There's a lot of footage that will never see the light of day, and some that probably will. So yeah, it was actually Johnny's Longthorn. It's his demo gun that he has. So of course, the gun shop, or TGS Outdoors, has a partnership with Longthorn. So Johnny has his own personal Longthorn, but because of the partnership, he actually has a demo gun with him that he can lend out to people on game days. And he was like, Connors, do you fancy a Longthorn to shoot for the day? He's like, don't know what that is. He goes, fairly expensive British made shotgun. Sold. And he shot it. Now Connors wants a Longthorn, which is expensive. So yes, but we can get that back. Johnny said to us, look, if you ever want it to do some more shooting with, want to film with it, let me know. And of course, we're not that far away. We're probably from the Magload HQ, we can be at the gun shop within half an hour maybe. So we could go and pick it up, get it, and do a review of it. Everyone makes mistakes. We are human. It's how you bounce back that makes you who you are and how you're seen. Positivity is key for everything, especially in the world now. I think that sums it up perfectly, Jamie. Yes, it's I have this attitude with products and companies. Shit goes wrong, right? It does. It is a matter of fact. I'm an absolute Apple fanboy, as I'm sure most of you know. They're not infallible. They go wrong. Things break. The reason that I'm such an Apple fanboy is because you can walk into a Apple store, go, this is broken. They go, yep, it's under warranty. Here's a new one. You walk out of the shop, you download everything from the cloud, and then within half an hour, you're back up and running again. It's that sort of just no hassle, no bullshit service. And that's something that we like. We try to emulate at Magload. We technically have a black and white limited warranty. Like it's sort of not worth, for a good reason, not really worth even reading the terms and conditions, because we continuously always go above the warranty. Stuff breaks, stuff gets missed. Accidents happen, mistakes are made. It is how you recover from them, I think, is the true test of any person or company. Arian, I can't multiply. I wish you could. I really wish you could. That would be a massive help. Or I could just multiply myself. That I don't think the world could handle. I've been shooting for years and just discovered Bell Target at 10 meter. It's actually where a lot of modern day shooting sports or target sports originated. Johnny is on the wild side. I wonder how much dirt Sasha has recorded. Yes. That's probably why I don't think Sasha and Johnny will ever part ways. It's kind of like me and Connors as well. The amount of footage I have of Connors, I'd ruin him. But everyone knows that we're retrobates, so it's, you know, I'm not breaking any illusion. But yeah, I gained a shitload more respect. I already really liked Johnny and got on well with him, but you know, some of the stuff he came out with, I was like, oh, my sort of humor, my sort of guy. Definitely plays a character on his channel. Yes, he does. Literally every phone does that. Does what? Anyway, I was going to talk about the Bisley Hotel potential thing. I'll talk a little bit about it. It's just like I'm sort of a little bit out of ranting, and it's the NRA, so I'm no doubt going to end up ranting. But a bit of interesting news. So this is something that I've got a vague sort of understanding or grasp of, but anybody that has been to Bisley, you'll probably recognize this building, right? And I think it's because of this building that when I tried to get my my now fiance a little bit more into shooting, when we used to only live like 20 minutes away from Bisley, the first time I took her to Bisley, we came back and she was like, Callum, the place we went to today, I genuinely thought was a concentration camp. I genuinely got a little bit worried. And, you know, when you see stuff like that, you can understand. So I think the long and the short of it, so the NRA has acquired that site. So it used to be under the NSRA. The NRA has now acquired it. But as far as I understand from reading various comments and discussions online, is that the NRA, actually, the NSRA bought that plot from the NRA, and they were going to develop it quite a while ago. That's right. It says on, well, it's actually still on the post. The triangular site on the main access road through the camp was originally sold by the NRA to the NSRA in 2003 with the view of developing a hotel, but this did not happen. And it depends which side of the camp you want to talk to in terms of who's... Hello. If you... It's not really a duck. It depends on the... 1 minute. I'll bring up the post. There we go. I'll block the camera. There we go. Yeah, you can come in. Well, you didn't have to come in there naked. Right. What's that? Battery. Oh. Why does she need a battery? Anyway, moving on. Sorry for that so ever rude interruption. The problem is that this is sort of half my office slash half Holly's office. So if there's anything she needs, she ends up having to interrupt. Anyway, where were we? Yeah. So basically, it was going to be a hotel. Depending on what side of the argument that you want to listen to, is the NRA continuously blocked any plans that the NSRA put forward to build a hotel. So it was like, yeah, we're going to buy this plot of land and put a hotel on it. Okay, we'll take your money. Right, we want to put a hotel on it. Well, you're not doing that. But we bought this from you to put a hotel. Yeah, but we sort of don't want one. We just sort of wanted your money. You know, and I think there was maybe, you know, a little bit of that. And then, in fairness, from the other side of the argument, the reason it kept falling down is because the NSRA would have to rely on land still owned by the NRA. The NSRA would have to rely on land owned by the NRA in order to have enough parking for the hotel. So it just sounds like typical Bisley politics, if I'm going to be completely honest. Just like, guys, can we just stop for 2 minutes and like actually think of the sport for once, rather than like swinging your organizational dicks about? Like, it's just like, no, like the shooters always lose no matter what way you look at it. So yes, the NRA are sort of rolling this out as a, look at us, look how great we are. We're going to redevelop this, thing, because the NSRA, turned it into an absolute dive. And it's like, well, there's a reason they weren't able to develop it. So don't come in here all sweetness and light. What the NRA are going to do with it, nobody actually knows at the moment. It could just be redeveloped as it was, or they may decide to put a hotel, new building, new club. Nobody knows 100%. But interestingly, like typical NRA fuddy target shooters. I know that's a very generalized statement, but you know what I mean. It's not like I'm wrong. Somebody's like, okay, everyone's like, great, yeah, so perhaps the NRA will finally fulfill this dream of having a hotel and like better facilities so shooters can have a nice place to stay, but also bring on new people onto the camp that may not know about shooting. And the amount of people that were going, oh, that's a horrible idea. We don't want people from outside the community coming in and seeing what we do. Oh, that will only lead to the demise of the sport. And you're like, you really don't fucking get it, do you? Like, there's a reason the sport is constantly in decline. It's because nobody knows about it. It's like, it's a brilliant idea. Have something there that gets people on camp learning a little bit more about the history of Bisley and shooting sports in general. Like, brilliant. Like, you could, in my mind, demolish all the caravans, put a hotel spa / family. You could build a centre parks for all I care. If it gets people on camp, getting people shooting, isn't that a big benefit? Like, yeah. And the thing is, if there was a hotel and spa there, and people joke about it, oh, what are they going to do? Build a hotel and spa there? That would be a horrible idea. No, it wouldn't, because I might actually be able to convince my other half to go shooting for a weekend. Right? Can you imagine there's a hotel, drop off the spa, drop off the kids, drop off the other half, you go shooting, they get their nails done. It's win-win, right? At the moment, it's, do you want to go and stay in a caravan in a semi-field in the middle of what looks to be a concentration camp? Not really selling it. It's not really, you have to be pretty into your shooting to want to go and stay on Bisley, right? Let's just be completely honest about it. But yeah, I think it's a little bit of news. Like, let's see where they go with it. Let's see what the NRA and the NRA does with it. I'll say no more. If the NRA builds a hotel, it will be overpriced, most likely. Social club in Bisley, that's what, I mean, really, that's surely what the pavilion should be, right? You should have an area that anybody from any shooting on camp should be able to go there. That's technically like what the London Middlesex is for, right? The London Middlesex, like, anybody can walk in, you don't need to be a member, you can have food there, but it's always busy. Right, it's certainly when I was at Bisley more regularly, it's always the place to go for lunch, right? Why is it falling down to one individual club? Why isn't the NRA providing that like communal hangout, that communal area for all shooters to go and have a drink, stay the night, have some food, sit around in the comfort and talk about shooting, right? Old people like social clubs, right? I like social clubs, right? I'm not old, promise. It would just be it would be one of those things that you just go, I'm going to Bisley. Oh, what are you shooting? I'm not shooting, I'm just going to go hang out, right? It would be so much cooler. Anyway, so yeah, thought I'd just cover that off. But It has been a little long this evening. We've hit over the 2 hour mark. So before I leave, if you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button. And if you like what you see, then make sure you're subscribed, because we do this every single week. As I've said, there will be the full video about the Westlake Engineering muzzle loading Alpha 357 revolver. And a little bit more about the history of Alan Westlake. That will be going live on Sunday. Genuinely, thank you again to Arian for coming on board and helping with the channel. We have some cool videos in the works. I've reviewed the battle arms that I'm using for competition. I've sort of reviewed in a little bit of a different way Arian's Aero Precision, both built by Cotswold Classic Arms, and also core belts that will be coming out soon. Just as a reminder, Arian, I think the battle arms video next, please, if it's all right. Too many non-gun reviews, but the Alan Westlake video is sort of like a gun review, so there we go. So yeah, plenty of content coming out, and I am going to be getting onto all of the match videos very, very shortly. So there's going to be like sort of the reviews of there's going to be reviews of the previous year's matches. But there we go. There will still be a stream on Thursday, even though it's close to Christmas. Luckily, there's a little bit of buffer, and Christmas just slots in nicely. Away. Actually, when's New Year's? Oh, New Year's is out the way as well. Great. Unaffected. So we are good for streams during the Christmas and New Year's period. Get in. But there we go, guys. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, don't forget to hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed. I will see you next week, same place, same time. And of course, as always, guys, I hope to see you soon.